We now know 3 more chemicals that were on board the Norfolk Southern train that derailed here in East Palestine just over a week ago. And we're being told that some of those chemicals are dangerous.
We basically nuked a town with chemicals so we could get a railroad open.
The U.S. Cinema Shogun here, and ladies and gentlemen, I am so ready to rip the Band-Aid off and to start covering news stories that actually matter. Don't get me wrong. It's fun covering the celebrity drama, and I like doing the true crime stuff, but I feel like I'm wasting my potential, and I'm wasting my platform by not covering news stories that actually matter, that actually affect all of us. The only problem is YouTube does not like it when you talk about things that actually matter. And the only way we can combat that is by you all liking this video, dropping comments on this video, and most importantly, sharing this video on all social media platforms. But anyways, for those of you all who might not know, on February 3rd, a freight train carrying hazardous material derailed in East Palestine, Ohio. People are now calling this America's Chernobyl. And the reason they're doing this is because of the hazardous material that leaked out of this train that is now burning and putting out a smoke cloud that is covering a 200-mile radius. This is going to have lasting effects on the environment. It's going to affect a lot of people in this country, even people who live nowhere near this area. The soil is contaminated. The water is contaminated. The air is contaminated. People's pets are literally dropping dead. Livestock, cattle, dropping dead. People are going to the river, to the ponds, and there are dead fish floating everywhere. Now, when this train derailment happened, they only evacuated people within a 1-mile radius. But as of right now, this toxic chemical smoke cloud is affecting an over 200-mile radius, and it is still spreading. In fact, it is now spreading to the water supply. This situation is getting extremely serious, and it's not getting a lot of coverage. Vinyl chloride, a deadly chemical, has now contaminated the Ohio River due to the train derailment. The Ohio River serves over 10% of the U.S. population. The river supplies public drinking water to over 5 million people, all the way down to West Virginia. This will affect over 30 million people. And ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't matter where you live in America. If you live in America, this is most likely going to affect you somehow. This has affected a lot of crops, a lot of farmland. And if you live anywhere near this area and you can afford to, hell, maybe even if you can't afford to, I suggest you get the heck out of town. Because it's not a question of if this is going to affect your health, it's a question of how.
There's a lot of what ifs, and we're going to be looking at this thing 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line and wondering, gee, cancer clusters could pop up, well water could go bad.
Caggiano recommends anyone who's in the East Palestine area get a health checkup. He says get a record of where your health stands now so that moving forward, you have documentation of any possibly related effects to the train derailment.
As they just said, if you live in this area, you need to start getting checkups because this is going to have a lasting effect on your health. Who knows what may happen? This kind of reminds me of 9/11. And I know some of you are like, what, 9/11? Hear me out here. When we think of 9/11, we think of all the people who lost their lives in the towers. We think of all the first responders who lost their lives that day. But the fact is, thousands of people died from the effects of 9/11 well after 9/11. Years and years later, there are still people dying to this day from the effects of 9/11 and the stuff and the chemicals and all of the stuff they were breathing in down there by ground zero. And that's what's happening in this town. They're telling people, hey, it's okay. You could go back home now. Everything's okay. There's nothing to see here. Meanwhile, they're arresting journalists who have been trying to cover this story. They're trying to keep this thing on the hush-hush. A lot of people said that these recent UFOs we've been talking about, they're saying that those were a distraction from this story. But I don't believe that. And honestly, that distraction didn't work Because if anything, those UFO stories brought everyone right around to talking about what's going on in Ohio. But the story gets even weirder, folks, because today in South Carolina, another train derailed. And then a few hours later in Texas, another train derailed. Now, as far as the train in South Carolina, it is hard getting information about that. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on there. I even have people reaching out to me that actually live in the area and they have no idea it even happened. As far as the train in Texas, it derailed near Houston, and I can confirm for 100% fact that that train was also carrying hazardous materials. Now, I'm not saying all of this stuff is connected, but it's looking really odd. And then when you look at the main shareholders who own stock of this train company, Norfolk Southern, I know I'm messing up the name. These stockholders for Norfolk Southern, which, full disclosure, I own stock in Norfolk Southern as well, and I don't care. I'll still cover this story. But these big stockholders, they're like Vanguard, BlackRock. Now, talking about those entities, if you will, I don't know what to even call BlackRock at this point. That will take a whole nother series of videos. That's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But long story short, they've been buying up a lot of land. They've been buying up a lot of real estate. They're trying to make sure that the next generation of Americans will no longer be able to own homes, okay? And they're also buying up a lot of farmland. Did you know that Bill Gates is the largest owner of farmland in America? Why is that? And then you know about all of his agendas. That's really weird and creepy. But listen, I'm not saying that this situation happened on purpose, but I'm not so sure. And people will say, that's a conspiracy, that's a conspiracy. I told you all 4.5 months ago that the Nord Stream pipelines were sabotaged by the USA. People said that I was a conspiracy theorist. Now, the news came out a couple of days ago that it's true, and now everyone's acting all up in arms about it. I told you about that 4.5 months ago. 4.5 months from now, it will be common knowledge, and then people will be like, oh. So yeah, you could think it's a conspiracy if you want to. They want to further control our food supply. You can look all around the world. There are mass protests, mass uprisings all around the world because various governments are trying to move in and take further control of farmlands. They're trying to control people's crops. They're using climate change as an excuse to do this. And I feel like this may be what's happening right here in America. They're sabotaging some of our water supplies. They're sabotaging some of our food. They're sabotaging our crops, our farmlands, on purpose so they can further control us. You can think that's a conspiracy if you want to, but if you think it's a conspiracy, it's probably because you're a sheep. But as far as the train that derailed in Ohio, about 50 cars derailed from the train track, 20 of which were carrying hazardous materials. 5 were carrying vinyl chloride. Vinyl chloride itself is a carcinogen. The burning of the chemical, which releases hydrogen chloride and phosphagen, can be immediately lethal. Phosgene or phosphagen, a highly toxic colorless gas with a strong odor, was actually used as a weapon during World War I. So anyone who isn't taking this hazardous material that's burning off into the air seriously, they actually use the same type of gas that these people are breathing in on a daily basis. They used this gas in chemical warfare in World War I. If you don't know about World War I, there was a lot of chemical warfare during World War I. There was also a lot of trench fighting, okay? And I think that's kind of scary when you have a whole town that you're telling, oh, it's okay to stay here. It's okay to go back home and breathe in toxic waste. It's okay to breathe in the same fumes that we use for chemical warfare in World War I. It's totally fine. It's not going to have an effect on you. Don't worry about it. Just go about your day. Meanwhile, they're also experiencing acid rain. I kid you not. Deadly chemicals are in the rain, dropping down on them, dropping down on the crops still dropping down on the water supply. I don't know what's going to come of this, but here we have another incredibly crazy situation happening once again in an already crazy time. You know, from this to the UFOs to the various food plants and warehouses that have been burning down for months. How can you look at all of this stuff? How could you gather all of these news stories, put them in front of you, and not feel like there's a bigger picture here? You know what I mean? When you take the train derailments, and then you take we're blowing balloons and UFOs out of the sky, and then you take all of the other crazy things and you kind of just put it out there like one of those people that put all the things on the board and they try to connect the dots. How could you not see that there's a bigger picture here at play? I can't help but feel like we are under attack from the outside, from the inside, from the left, from the right, from everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I can't help but feel that way. But for now, I'm definitely going to look into this situation a lot more. This is just me going ahead and just bringing you all up to date and making you all aware of what's happening here. But I'm sure there's a lot to uncover. There's a lot to dig into here, and I'll be doing that tonight. Let me know your thoughts, though, down in the comment section. Like I said, share this video if you can. It's totally free. Share it on any social media platform you're on. But while you're here, drop your thoughts below. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the subscribe button. If you live in this area and you have any footage, you might want to send it to me so I can go ahead and get that out there for you all as well. But I'll be talking to you all soon in the next video.